I'm Nick Pomeroy with PR Equipment out here in Kearns, Texas. Hey, today we wanted to talk about some implements, and for right now what we're really focused on here is the tillers, and specifically the tillers built by Dirt Dog. I don't think we've talked much about the Dirt Dog product line before, but it is one of our favorite product lines here at PR Equipment. It's not the cheapest product line, but I do honestly think it's one of my favorites just because of the quality construction. It's got great paint on it. It's just a quality implement all the way around. So Dirt Dog makes what they call the RT series of tillers, and they make them in 3 different sizes. So there's a 5 foot, a 6 foot, and a 7 foot, which would be an RT 205, 206, and 207. You can also get it in a reverse till. And so you got a lot of options for these tillers, and I think price point wise, they're really competitive, but they are in what I'd consider that more medium duty to heavy duty class versus some other tillers that might not give you quite this much weight and this good a construction. So common throughout all these tillers is going to be this same gear drive. It's all gear drive for this tiller, but we're going to have the center gearbox. It's going to be a slip clutch style drive line, and then all gear drive on the side. And if you get the reverse till, it's going to have an extra gear in there that allows it to turn backwards. And talking a little bit about forward till versus reverse till, you've got to kind of picture this as you set in your tractor. So traditionally your tines are going like this, and they're kind of pushing the tractor a little bit, which is usually okay in a tractor setting, but it doesn't always pull into the ground quite as far, which in some applications is good. And of course, if it's already been tilled, it's not an issue because it's going to pull in because the ground's soft anyway. But forward till typically on that first pass doesn't go as deep. It kind of hops maybe a little bit on top of the ground. Now, if you're trying to run a tiller that's a little bit wider than maybe you have power for, I think a forward till is actually the way to go. Now, there's also a reverse till. And so reverse till is going to fight your tractor. It's going to go in the opposite direction and kind of suck that tiller in. Typically, it gets you a little bit more tillage in a one-pass style application. But that reverse till is a good option. It's going to require more horsepower because it's going to pull harder, and it might dig deeper and faster than you might want to go depending on your tractor application or how that goes. But it's nice to have both options, and we sell a bunch of both options. A few applications, a lot of people are like, oh, this is a garden tiller, so it's for tilling gardens. And that's true, but we actually have a lot of customers that use these for all sorts of other applications as well. Maybe you're doing some landscaping and you need to break that dirt up before you spread it out. Or one of the most popular things here in Navarre County, a lot of people are using these to fix where hogs have rooted up. And they use this because it's such hard pack that they break it up with this, and then they're able to kind of smooth it back out. So we sell a ton of these to fix hog wallers. But a couple things I want to point out is just how heavy these things are. So if you look at some of the steel that goes into this, it's just extremely thick. The end plates are 1/2 inch thick. You've got your, all of your bracketry. It's kind of a clevis style versus a single pin style. So I really like that. It is quick hitch compatible, so that's obviously nice. And I love this A-frame. It's these 2 solid pieces. A lot of times we get tillers from different brands and you've got to kind of bolt a lot of pieces together. These basically come set up with that real heavy A-frame. And I think it's one of the heaviest in the business. But also, a few other things. You've got a kickstand here, and obviously every tiller has a kickstand, but I really like this, just a little better engineering. Of course, it's tighter than heck right now, but just a little better engineering to have it kind of bolt on there, and you're able to just kind of pin it with this captive pin. We sell some other brands, and it's not quite that nice. You've got to remove a pin, and that's okay too. I just think for what these are, this is just a nice tiller setup. So on this side, you've always obviously got the bearing. So the other bearing is going to be running in oil based off that gearbox, that side gearbox. On this side, we're going to be running it with grease. So it is a greasable bearing. You got to remember to grease that every so often. But anyway, that's what's on the other side. A couple adjustments here. You've got this skid shoe. There's a few adjustments here, and that's going to kind of set your depth. And you've also got to understand, even when it's set to the deepest, that first pass might not suck all the way in. Of course, that also depends a little bit upon your application. So out here, we're going to till with it in a minute, and we're going to be going into hard-packed clay. I typically would like to see this prepped by like maybe a ripper, a subsoil, or something like that to kind of get that initial breakup. We're not going to do that. We're going to just take a first pass at this hard-packed dry clay and see what it'll do. But to get a good bed, or to get a good surface, a planting surface, you're going to want to make a couple passes, get real deep and really process that dirt well. But before we jump on that, I want to show you kind of underneath here. So you've got 4 tines per, I call them discs or flanges. You've got 4 tines. So there's 2 that mount one way and 2 that mount the other. And this happens to be an RT206, so it's a 6-foot tiller, and it's a forward till. So you've got tons and tons and tons of tines that are going to be turning and really churning that dirt up. So when it comes to gardening, this is really the best way to process that. But like I say, it just has a few other applications. You do have this hinge back, which can kind of determine how your seed bed is prepared. So when you leave it down, it kind of puts a little bit of down pressure on there and kind of firms up that seed bed a little bit. You can also chain it up and out of the way, and now we're just throwing that dirt wherever. So it kind of processes it just a little different. Now it is hinged, so as more material needs to come out, it will move, so that's pretty nice. One other thing before we start running this thing is what you'll find, and there's cheaper tillers out there, but they're just not built this heavy. This tiller ranges from, I think it's like about 700 pounds to maybe 850 pounds on the larger one. And having that extra weight does a few things for you. Obviously it's great because it's going to help push that tiller in the ground. But what I find is the heavier the tiller, obviously the heavier duty it is, but the less vibration you're going to get from it. Because when you're going into hard packed ground, it's going to try to hop. And with a lighter tiller, it tends to vibrate a little bit and kind of make a little racket. So I really like these tillers. I really like the all gear drive. I think it's one of the best tillers in the market, and we really enjoy selling them. And we typically stock it in a 5, a 6, and a 7, and usually have a reverse tiller too around if that's what you prefer. But today we're just going to play with this forward till. So just hitting the key points. It's just a very, very well built tiller. I love the paint. I love the weld quality. It's just a good looking machine that I think you can use for a long, long time to come. I mean, you can put a lot of wear on this thing and it's still going to keep on going. So we're going to hop on the tractor, fire it up. We happen to have it hooked to an 1835E Massey Ferguson tractor. It is a gear drive tractor. This also, a hydrostat is really nice for this purpose as well, but we're going to put it in first gear and kind of go slow with it and just see what it's going to do. And maybe we'll come back and make one more pass and just see if we can break it up a little bit more, just to give you an idea of what it's going to do for you. So I'm up here on the tractor. We've got the tractor running. A couple points to remember when you're running this tiller is, first off, always start it out of the ground. It's better to start it with no load on it. You won't be slipping clutches. You won't be putting too much stress on your tractor. So it's always good to start the PTO with the tiller out of the ground. And when you do that, I like to start at a lower RPM. And then once I get the tiller engaged, I'll go ahead and speed it up. It's not as important because there's not a lot of inertia behind this implement. It's pretty easy to get turning, but it's just kind of a good rule of thumb. So I'm going to kick it on, and then I'm going to speed my tractor up to PTO speed. So a couple things to notice is how smooth the tiller's running, and I really like that. But I'm going to go ahead and put it in the ground, and I'm going to put it in first gear. So that's the first pass. We're going to make one more pass. And I'll go ahead and drop the tiller. And as you can see, we're starting to get a little deeper, and a couple more passes is going to make that really nice. Now I want to show you something. So the two things I want to show you here is, one, what it looks like with a third pass, and I'm going to show you something that's kind of interesting on a forward tine tiller or a forward till tiller, is that it can actually push the tractor. So even when you push the clutch in, if you've got the tiller in the ground, it can still drive your tractor forward. So we're going to rev it up again. So I'm getting a little deeper this time, but I'm going to push the clutch in, and in certain applications, it's still going to be, in certain applications, it'll still be driving your tractor just because it's pushing it with the tiller. But what I want to show you here is just how deep it's gone and how good that soil is. So now we're ready to plant. I would probably make another pass or two. And honestly, a couple things just from my personal experience that I like to do if I'm preparing a new bed. I will mow it first to get as much of the organic material off the ground as possible. And I really would prefer the organic material stay, but if I've got some seeds and stuff like that, I try to get all that off of there so I get less weed pressure after I've tilled. One other thing that I like to do is I will till, rather than do a big open plot, I will till in strips, and then I'll actually put plastic on top of that seed bed that we prepare. And so I usually like to lay out, I mean, if you don't have bulk compost, I'll get a bunch of bags of compost and I'll lay it out in a strip and till that into this soil on that last pass, and that makes for a great planting bed. And then you can put a sheet of plastic. They make that, the plastic that prevents weed barrier, or that kind of weed barrier, you can lay it over top of here, plant through that plastic, and man, you won't be weeding all season long. And so that's one of my favorite ways to do that. But it also, when we add that material to our garden or to our tilled strip, we add that material, it helps build up that hump a little bit, kind of lets that water shed a little bit, so we're not capturing too much water and retaining it. I am not a gardening expert, so obviously there's probably people out there that know this better than I do. I do know a little bit about equipment, and I think you can't go wrong with the Dirt Dog RT Series rotary tillers. As far as horsepower requirements, it really depends on application. My general rule of thumb is typically get one wider than the tractor. In case you ever do want to do a big open square space, you're going to want that to be pretty wide. And if that's pretty wide, then you'll be able to do that or do strip tilling. Now, some people will get it narrower and just do the strips, and that's fine too. But common rule of thumb is it's less concerned about horsepower, more concerned about the cover and the width of the tires, and you may just have to go slower. I'm Nick Pomeroy with PR Equipment in Kearns, Texas, talking here today about the RT Series tillers. Come check them out, or give us a call. Maybe if you're not local, give us a call. Maybe we can get one to you. I like to say, you just can't go wrong with the Dirt Dog quality and construction. Thanks.